Welcome back to Weekend Express. Education Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i had instructed the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission to set the election date or the date for the repeat presidential election by latest 17th October so as not to interfere with the dates set for national examinations in the country. As it stands, however, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission says they may not be ready for the election by the 17th of October, considering that the KIM system must be upgraded. The company mandated with upgrading the KIM system says it will not be ready by the 17th of October. How is this likely to affect examination dates in the country? Well, in studio with me, I have Johnstone Ochoa, Acting Assistant Director at the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development. This has been a conversation, which has also been politicized, so to speak, in the wake of the presidential campaigns in the country. But is there any credibility to this argument that elections must be held by the 17th of October to allow examinations to continue?
Well, the first thing which you have to note is that the pupils in those primary schools, they are not doing the elections. They are not part of the election. But the institutions where they are will be used as polling centers.
Right.
And I think this might not affect the scheduled dates because the polling date is only one day. If the pupils are told not to come to school for only one day, I don't think that it will affect the whole system.
Right.
So whether it is pushed, whether it remains on 17th, I don't think that it is going to interfere with the schedules of the examination and all that.
So things will continue as normal?
Things, I hope.
Because Education CS Fred Matiang'i says there will be a major crisis in the country if that does not happen by the 17th of October.
I may not be sure, but from the look of things, I don't think that whatever is happening will affect the scheduled examinations.
All right, so if exams are to continue as scheduled, let's focus on the stringent measures that have been put down by NEC in terms of curbing examination cheating in the country. It is something that Education CS Fred Matiang'i has largely been applauded for. Last year, many called him the Magufuli of the education sector. And, he came from 2015, which had the highest rate of cheating in the country, to 2016, which had the least cases of examination cheating in the country, a record, deal for anybody. But several stringent measures have been put in place this time, especially with regard to examination papers. They will have security features, including the names and the pictures of the students who will be taking these examinations. What are your thoughts on these measures?
The better. I thought it could be put much, much tighter. Because at the end of it all, in a classroom situation, when a candidate is registered to take an examination, he's been working for all those 8 years. Then at the end of it all, somebody sits in a room somewhere, then cheats. And then at the end of the day, he comes with 400 marks or an A at KCSE examination. So whatever has been put in place is just trying to emphasize that cheating is not allowed in these examinations. So I would laud CS Matiang'i for tightening all that so that at least when you deserve a certain grade, you deserve it and get it genuinely. I applaud that. In fact, I would even encourage him to put more stringent measures to curb the cheating.
All right, but even last year, even after the examinations, there were concerns for various education stakeholders. And we did invite Omboko Milemba, former chairperson of KUPPET here, but he did not make it this morning. But among the concerns they had was the manner in which the examinations were marked, saying they may not have been done in the right way. Let's talk about that, because I understand there's some students who may get a 0 mark because their handwriting was not visible enough, their handwriting was not well readable, and now they have introduced scanners, so to speak, that will be able to go through these examination papers. But did you sense any irregularities in the way the marking of the exams was done last year?
I didn't mark in the first place. Marking is done by the teachers who have been handling these students. And at the same time, I think Kenya National Examination Councils recruit the right people to do the marking. They are given the instructions and all that. So, in fact, it is common sense. Because when somebody writes a paper and then maybe the handwriting is not all that good and all that, because handwriting is also an item that they are looking at, let that person fail in the handwriting mark that has been allocated. But the rest, if he is making sense in whatever he has put down, Why should I mark him wrong? Yeah? So at least I don't think that it has been proven that somebody was just crossing somebody's paper because of a handwriting issue. I don't think that is right. It is just an allegation. And I know the teachers who are involved in doing this are credible teachers. They are teachers with integrity. I've been a teacher, I know. Yeah? So if you are selected by NEC to go and do that particular work, you are a professional. And you have to exercise your professionalism at that particular time. So to me, I would treat that as just like an allegation. It has not been confirmed. Yeah, but I wish whatever is going to happen this year is going to even encourage the credibility of our examination.
Now, of course, with the lowest rate of exam cheating last year, we also had the highest transition rate in the country from primary to high school. What does the transition rate stand at now, and what would you attribute this increase to?
I may not be sure, but then if an examination is given and it is taken, results are released, finds that you have passed, so you are supposed to move to the next level. So if you move to the next level, what is the big deal?
Yeah, but there were issues initially with the transition rate. There were not enough slots in high schools for students who had completed primary schools. And the Education Ministry says they have built more schools, they have built more classrooms. What else would you attribute that transition rate to?
Maybe the free primary education which has been implemented, and it is going on, and we expect this also to happen because all the two political divides, the major political divide, the NAS and the Jubilee, if you look at their manifesto, they are talk of free primary education, free secondary education. So I think by the end of the year, the transition is going to be much higher. But the better. Let it be much higher so that it provokes the government to implement all or deploy more resources to our institutions so that the Kenyans can access education.
All right, and finally, let's focus once more on the new 2663 system. They say that might ensure a 100% transition rate. How is that possible?
It is very much possible. Because to me, if you look at the assessment criteria, what is going to be used, a student has passed, yeah? In fact, the assessment which is going to be employed in this is going to be marks accumulated from the time you entered into a school. These marks will be accumulated then by the end of maybe the 6-year period. We are going to look at the marks which shall have accumulated, and it is going to account for 70%. The examination which is going to be brought will account for only 30%. So whether that external examination, which is also important, whether it is there or not, obviously, this candidate or this student shall have transited, has attained that mark which can make him move to the next level. So to me, it is going to be 100%. And what we are trying to eliminate with this is that in most cases, if you look at the 844 system of education at the moment, children are given a lot to cram, then sit the examination. Now, if you tell him or give him some work to do which is relevant to whatever he has covered, he'll not be able to do because he has not learned. He has just crammed the content, sit the examination, and pass. But the learning in whatever he has covered cannot be seen. Because he cannot be given, he cannot exercise whatever he has learned. But in the new system, you are expected to exercise. At that particular time when you are receiving that content, you are expected to exercise and apply it. Because you'll not be in school throughout your life. You'll transit and move to the world of work. So when you are in the world of work, can you implement whatever you have been doing? And since they've been doing it, they'll have it fine.
Okay. This new system is also largely based on the digital literacy program, which again is dependent on the capacity of schools across the country to accommodate the digital literacy program. There has been a big debate in the country as to whether all public schools in the country, in all corners of the country, are able to accommodate this. And this needs, digital software. This needs electricity connection in all schools. What is the state of the implementation of that?
Well, we have not rolled out the program, but we are assuming, politicians, yeah, they are talking of wamesambaza umeme all over the country. They can tell you heavens on earth But when you go to the actual situation on the ground, sometimes a school in Turkana might not be having power.
Right.
So these are some of the challenges that we have in the system. And I think still it will persist because the government, if they don't do something by this particular time before we have the full rollout, obviously still it will be a challenge.
Right.
Yeah, but we have to move. We have to move.
We have to move forward.
Yes.
Thank you so much for speaking to us, Johnstone Ochoa-Senior, Acting Assistant Director at the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development. Just taking us through several issues in the education sector, including the set dates for the national examinations in the country. In his view, he feels that if exams are not held by the 17th of October, this will not affect the timelines for examinations in the country. It is a conversation we will continue keeping an eye on, even as the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission continues to debate as to whether it will be able to meet its own deadline set for the repeat presidential election. It is 1:30 the hour. Let's take a short commercial break, but when we come back, we'll be taking a look at what's making headlines on the dailies.